a deep breath and remember who you are. Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby, you're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels right. Time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're symphonic, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur. Dancing in the
Positively
limelight.
powerful on a Wednesday. Take a step away from who you were and a step closer to who you are going to be or who you are. Scott Fitzgerald alongside Stacey Steinmiller. And and we're doing it. We're doing it again.
Doing it again.
Doing it again. We are limitless. We are thinking we are thinking about limitless thinking, about limitless thinking. It just keeps repeating. This is an important thing for me, and I know Stacey likes this too. This idea of when you have a goal, removing those doubts, removing those like, oh, you know, I want to make this much money. That's too much. Like, how can I possibly, like, that doubt that stops you from achieving that goal? I want to make $1 million next year. I mean, that's a tall order, but doable somehow. If the more you believe in it, the you know, it's just, you might not get to $1 million. You might get to, you know, 750,000, but that's 750,000 more than you had before.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
And I know a lot of people, especially on social media, are, you know, they poo-poo the law of attraction type of stuff, but there's a reason why that's all good, because of that mindset that it puts you in when you practice it.
Yep.
That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. What's the mindset? What's the mindset, Stacey? How do you do it? What's the trick?
Limitless mindset?
The limitless mindset.
Well, I think it's helpful to see, identifying your limiting thoughts and recognizing, I've probably said this before in here, that is usually to keep you in a state of known. Like, I know this, versus the limitlessness is an unknown. It's an expansion, and that can feel really scary. And so it activates a lot of fear. So to mitigate the fear that we're experiencing, we engage that limiting thought. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm back in my safe little box, and I don't need to do the scary things to do that $1 million a year, right? Because in order to do $1 million a year, if you're nowhere near $1 million a year, you need to do a lot of things differently, right? And that's scary. So we're like, oh, well, it's not possible. So I'll stay at 250 or wherever you're at, you know? Yeah.
$250. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's oh, look at that. When I go here, I'm in a different room. But then when I go back here, I'm back where I started. The magic of video
You're time
production.
traveling.
I'm time traveling. I'm what is it called? I'm a geez. Wow. I can't think.
I don't know.
You know, when you geez, I can't even like I'm not able
you
to
sound
tap
like me
into
earlier.
to tap into the old well, it doesn't matter. So we go back to the limitless thinking, and a lot of our conversations for me always come back to a couple of books. one of which is, the classic Napoleon Hill book, which I can't now remember. What's it called?
Which one?
Think
The
and Grow
Think
Rich.
and Grow Rich.
Wow,
Yeah.
my brain. And you know what's funny? What's ironic about this is I took this I don't again, I can't remember what it's called. Some kind of focus drink that you mix in water.
Oh, was
Like
it the mind, that green thing?
I don't know. I don't remember what
Oh,
it's
you don't
called.
even know. You're like, I don't even know what I put in my
It
body today.
obviously didn't work, or I need more of it because while I feel good today, my brain is going no. And here's the funny thing is as we're coming up with what to talk about today, Stacey likes to send voice messages in the messenger rather than typing it out. And it was, she'd just woken up or whatever. So the first, I don't know, 10, 15 words, I still don't know what the hell you said. It was like,
So, no, the weird thing is, I had a 7 a.m. one-on-one this morning. I was like up, I had talked for an hour. It was a great session. And then I messaged you after that. And I
you
was
used it all up.
stumbling over. Right. I was like, did I literally use all my energy by 8 a.m.?
Paul brings up a good point, like tapping into one's imagination instead of memory. I think
Yes.
the memory
I
part.
love that, Paul. Hi, Paul.
Yeah. The memory part
Okay.
is key because it's sort of, it's like past limitations. You're remembering past limitations. You're remembering old habits or something, right? Is that what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
So if you're trying to create based off the memory, you are therefore always in the past, right? Because memory is in the past. So if you want to be innovative and creative and forward moving, then we have to tap into our imagination, like Paul is saying. And that but we have a lot of negative beliefs around that of, well, that's not going to work, or that's childish, or that's just a dream, so it brings us back into this memory past thing. But you're not going to grow if you just keep doing that. You're just going to get more and more of the same. So in order to leap into a future that is more expansive and different and so forth, we need to tap into the unknown. And in our imagination, our creativity is such a powerful tool to do that. And that's why I talk about creativity a lot.
Yeah.
And to like hone in on it and like spend that time doing, like I do intuitive art, because it just like unlocks
So what is intuitive art?
Oh,
that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So, and this was really hard for me because I have a lot of perfectionistic conditioning and so forth. But so what I do is I like to do paint. And so I just start mixing colors up and just grabbing a brush and just putting random, lines, squiggles, this, that. I'll use random objects and dip that in paint and put it on there. I'll rip up books and put it on there and all this stuff. And so I'm not trying to make anything. I'm not like, I'm going to paint a sunset and try and paint a sunset, right? So it's not that. It's just
stream of
randomly.
consciousness, right?
Yep. I put music on and I just bloop, 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 bloop. And I
That's
just keep
cool.
doing it
Yeah.
until I feel this complete feeling. And then usually I walk away from it in a bit, and then I'll come back and look at it. And then I usually write a poem that comes to me as I sit with whatever I created. And then from that, meaning or messages or things like that start appearing. I can have dialogue with it and really weird things like that.
But that's fun, and that's the part about the imagination. That's what I really enjoy about this dreaming part of setting goals and thinking about, like, what do I want? What do I want to achieve, even if it's just outlandish? Because it's fun, at least for me. As a creative person, I
Yeah.
enjoy making up stories and you know, like writing stories and things like that. So if I'm writing a story about myself as me as the main character saying
Hmm.
this is my the future that I want. Paul
Yep.
asks, how does this relate to thinking versus believing? And
Mm.
I would say that thinking versus believing is the emotion part, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. Like
thinking
you
of
can have
something and you're believing something, you have to have that emotion behind the believing.
right. Yeah. Exactly. So belief is, yeah, you're in full belief. Some people find even like the faith word to be stronger. Some people don't like that word. Conviction and can be a really strong word. So I encourage people to use the word I like. Sorry, because we're going to do the four agreements. And the first thing is be impeccable with your word, Friday. So mine's already going there. Um, finding the word that resonates with you at the highest level that you can tolerate, um, and leaning into that. So, but yeah, our thoughts usually, if we say the thoughts enough, they often turn into a belief, right? If you keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, you
Right.
believe it.
It's that
Yeah.
concept of auto
So,
suggestion.
yeah. So that's why it's like mind your thoughts. I think that was the name of a program I did. Uh sorry. Right. So if you're aware and you're mindful of what thoughts you're having, then you can like basically set the stage of what your beliefs are going to be. And then your actions are always going to follow what you actually believe, right? So this is why you can't trick yourself. You might say like, "Oh, I believe I can make $1 million next year," but if you
Right.
actually don't believe it,
Right. You're just lying to
then
yourself.
you're right, and your actions are going to be in alignment with what you actually believe, which is that you're not. So you're not going to do the things, make the connections, make the offers, to be, the outlandish stuff required to do, right? So yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, this thinking, believing, and then the actions that come from all that. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I hear this a lot. There's a lot of people that will try to poke holes in the you know,
Mhm.
thoughts are things philosophy in and there's I mean, if you look into it, there's plenty of people it's they're doing exciting research in like metaphysics and stuff that
Yeah, yeah,
gets
yeah.
down to like a molecular level and all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff, which is really interesting. But I know that there are people who flat out do not believe in the idea that if you think about something and you feel that you have it, and that whole idea of the law of attraction, they just said that is bullshit, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And what do you say to someone who comes to you with that statement?
Okay.
Fine, good for
It
you.
depends on the right. It depends on the nature of the conversation or so forth. Um, so if it's somebody that's curious, right, I'll engage them in a conversation. If it's somebody that wants to reinforce their own belief that it doesn't work, then I usually don't engage. And that's when I say, okay, like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool because it's kind of like what where you're obviously not going to get anywhere in that conversation. There's probably nothing that you're going to say that's going to change their mind about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh, I like that question. Yeah. Paul's good at questions.
Yes, I mean he's got 3.
Got a lot of Gemini in his chart.
Are they simply not believing in possibility? And I think that's
So, yeah, I would frame it as they're in a state of protection, and they're putting this idea of security, right? So it's like, well, this quote works. I know what works. This is what's good enough, right? So I'm going to stay in what I know and what I'm can live with, right? Yeah, because possibility, that can be really great, but then there's the negative of possibility, right? So that's the other thing where our imagination goes. So our imagination can go to really these positive, wonderful places, right? But it can also go to these really dark places too. So it could be like, all right, I want to make $1 million. Okay, well, what do I want to sell? What do I want to create? And you can just, do all that. Or you can be like, oh my gosh, what if I lose my house and I'm homeless and like all of this stuff? And then that's the other side. So the thing is when you tap into that possibility, you need to have the emotional bandwidth to handle all of that, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, nope, too much. Let me go back into my box, back into, I don't mind having the glass ceiling because I can't tolerate the negative places my mind goes. But to me, like that's where the juice is right now. Like now I'm like, all right, now we're talking. Now we're getting into the deeper stuff that I love working with people on, right? Like that's when you're getting somewhere because you're actually entertaining all that and letting that out and working through that.
And the one part about this that I always found fascinating is the idea of you set a goal, you put yourself in a state of reaching that goal. Like you are in the moment, I've reached the goal, I'm here. How does it feel?
Mhm.
What am I doing? All that kind of stuff. And then after you've been in that moment for a little while, and then you just release it. You go about your day. You
Mhm.
do
Yep.
things. You do
Yep.
things and you don't necessarily dwell on it. You just,
Correct.
it's there and you go about doing what you need to do. And I've found this just really since I started working with you that these things are just happening. They're just
Mhm.
showing up. And all a while in the back of my mind, I'm confident, I have the conviction
Yep.
that it's going to happen. I don't know
Yep.
how it's going to happen. I
Right.
don't know I think you could drive
Yeah.
yourself crazy trying to figure
Yep.
out all the possibilities of how something's going to align itself to you.
Yep.
So not worrying about that is
Yep.
freeing because you don't have to
Yes.
worry. You don't bog yourself down with all those
Right.
particulars.
Yeah,
You just
exactly.
say,
You just
this
know it's
is
going to
what it is.
happen.
This is what
Yep.
it is. It's going to happen. I'm going to do my crap. I'm going to do what I got to do.
Right. And you were in a great vibe, a good mindset, a high frequency, however you want to say it. And yeah, the opportunities start dropping in and you get a phone call and someone, offers you something and you're like, whoa. And so then, this is great positive reinforcement, right? And then it helps you to keep going and doing that and living that way because then you start to see the quote magic that shows up. And that's not to say like this stuff is hard work, right? Like it's not easy to shift your mindset. It's not easy to get in full conviction. It's not easy to let go of the fears and remove your blocks. So I think back to like your poo poo, the people that poo poo it is they have a view that people are just, I don't know, going outside and sitting in the sun saying, I have $1 million. And like, that's it.
Right.
They're anybody that doesn't, if they just are simply don't understand it and they don't have to. If you want to understand it, sure, I'll have a conversation with you about it. That's, if you don't want to understand it, then let's not have a conversation about it. I'll rather use my energy elsewhere.
Right. And I think it's if if you have that doubt somewhere down in there, that's what ultimately stops any
Yes.
further progress.
Yep. Yep.
Plus, you also have to be in tune to recognizing when these things happen because a lot of times they're subtle. A lot of times it's just a little like whisper of something.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
taking a shower and you get this idea and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
and you either act on it or you don't act on it. And a lot
Right.
of times that could be the deciding factor on whether or not your path goes that way. We
Exactly.
do have some questions in
What could be
what
the
could be the
signs of
signs of someone in that protection state on a day-to-day basis. What might that look like?
Okay. Yeah. So they're probably frustrated. Right. I think frustration is one of the biggest feelings, exhaustion. They might be like dragging their feet on things. Or they also might notice if they are in excitable, happy states, it very much feels like that roller coaster, right? Where you're waiting for the motivation and then you take that motivation ride. And then as soon as something doesn't quite go your way, you have the fall, right? So it's probably like a lot more roller coastery up and down. I would say probably a lot of frustration, a lot of complaining, a lot of like maybe proving energy. It could be people that are like busy all the time. So they're like distracting themselves with busyness, thinking, well, if I just do more of this, if I just do that, if I just do this, then right, I'll get what I want. They're fixated on the outcomes. They're probably, yeah, they're not present. It might be hard to have a real deep conversation with them. Their self-care is probably in the toilet. There's probably a different, like so many different ways, but
Yeah,
just to
and
name a few.
right. And before, when we had another question that came in that was how does this mindset impact business leaders negatively? And I think this was before we brought up the protection state.
So like the like limitless mindset.
The limitless mindset, yeah.
Um, well, if it impacts them negatively, then they're probably in more of like I guess that child imagination where there's not action and structure and commitment with it. So I guess that's where like an example where it could be slippery is where it might be like you said, like you don't want to be rash. So it's having all of the energy. So we want to step in our possibility into the limitlessness, but then we have to have the action and to build the structures and build the systems that support it, right? So back to this like $1 million year, like are you offering enough product or service to even make $1 million, right? If you're not, then you're not gonna, like if you're not selling $1 million, like
Yeah,
that's not
it's not going to
possible.
come out of thin air. It's not just going to appear. There
Yeah,
there are steps that you have to recognize signs, you do have to take steps, and you also, like you said, can't be rash. You can't just go out and say, I think this is a good idea, and go do it without
right.
putting some thought behind it, without doing some research. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, there's a lot of like woo kind of stuff that happens, but a lot of it really still revolves around sense, revolves around gut instinct and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So yeah, so you want to get out and take the action, but then you can use your intuition around the action. And if you're open to possibility and if you're convicted in your mission and what you're creating, then when you go out and have conversations with people and so forth, with that conviction, with, that confidence, this is what I'm creating, then that's when you'll start to see opportunities arise. Maybe somebody invests in what you're doing. Maybe you get a sponsorship. Maybe you or a partnership. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that could come, but when we're in a limited mindset, we don't see it. Or just the market dictates $1 million. So I that's one thing I don't get into of like don't but like basically I don't say like not believing the market, like believe your intuition, and that anything's possible. And so it's also about what you're creating. So it's not focusing on the cash, right? We don't want to just focus on the cash. It's like
Right.
what kind of impact do I want to bring the world? What kind of value do I want to bring the world? And then trusting your intuition that you're tapping into something that other people also desire and want and need, right? And you can, I'm not saying you not to do any market research, but when you go out and start having those conversations, doing those things, that is, a part of that market research, right? Like if you're creating this and they're like, okay, I think this would be impactful and a lot of value and I want to bring this out to the world, then the action step is going to lead you to those conversations, those things like that. So then you're also getting, so it's like you're still doing the normal business stuff. You're just doing it from an energy of full belief and conviction and possibility. And so that, you know, helps you to move through, the fears and the doubts and so forth, right? So that will bring you further on your journey, which brings you, more likely to actually create it. It helps you through those really tough times, so yes, I'm not saying like, so all the business stuff is still great in there. It's what's the energy and belief systems that are underlying all of it.
And I also believe that your your thoughts and your actions in some way really should come from a place of service,
Yep.
some sort of giving back, something that you would do for others. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be simple things throughout your day, but if you come from a place of service, generally
Mhm.
speaking, I
Mhm.
think that puts you in a better place for aligning to those goals. and
Yep.
and if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the universe, I think the universe wants everyone to come from a place of service and love to others,
Right. Yep.
so it encourages you to do that by rewarding you with little breadcrumbs that lead to your goal, like, wow, I just did this for a bunch of people. Not only do I feel good about myself, but look what just happened. That idea of karma
Right.
coming back to you
Yes.
tenfold or
Yes.
whatever.
Exactly. Yep. Always from a place of service. The thing sometimes people get snagged in with that is like a martyrdom issue, a lack of self worth issue, a trying to save or fix others issue, right? So if those energies get in, but that's all coming from fear again, right? So that's why we want to keep untangling the fear. So it can be from pure service, pure love, basically, yeah, operating with compassion. Yeah, but if you're trying to offer something that you don't have the time, energy, resources, or whatever, and you're still offering it anyways without actually going out to get, the resources, etc., to make the offer, then now you're operating from a place of lack, and you're trying to use the other person and you're trying to use the service to fill you up,
Right,
right?
right. If your intention for service is saying, I'm going to do this because I know I'm going to get stuff back, that
Yeah.
kind of negates the whole idea of doing it from service, because it's supposed to come from selflessness and love and compassion to help other people with no regard for your own, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I
returns.
would say like a need, like, oh, by helping you, it fills a need of mine
Right.
versus like you can still know that like when I serve, I still know great things are gonna come my way. But it's different of just knowing like, oh, I'm excited. Like I know some great things are gonna come my way. I don't know what they are, but I'm just like excited
That's
and
not
here to
why you
receive
give
them.
the service.
Right. And it's so it's like you can know that, you can allow that, but it's not coming like I have to give this service because if I don't, then I'm not gonna get what I need. Like, do you feel like that energetic difference between
Yeah.
like the same thing? Yeah.
That's the left hand shouldn't know what the right hand is doing. That's
Right.
my
Yeah.
everyday.
Yeah. So it's like you're gonna know, but just making sure that it's not the lack that's driving the ship, that it's your true belief in abundance and that that is driving the ship. It's the true knowing, like I know I'm protected, I know I'm gonna be okay, I know I'm gonna be provided for. And so therefore I can give purely from a place of love versus fear.
And so that kind of wraps it up into a nice little bow with the idea of limitless thinking is, and it all comes back to that fear, right? And
Yep.
fear is fear is like the third mic on this show, I think.
I mean, that's what I think it all comes down to. So that's what I focus on. So it's like, instead of focusing on the surface and particulars and so forth, why not just get to the root, which is the fear? And as we work through that, then we get to use our creativity and enjoy to then create the particulars, to create the structures, to create the plan forward, from a different energy. And that's where life can really be playful. That's where business can be playful, right? And we're just operating in a different way that I think makes us happier, and then therefore everybody around us happier, everyone we serve happier. And
right.
I'm just a little kid wanting the whole world to be a happy, loving place.
Take a deep breath and remember
But that's
who
beautiful.
you
That's
are.
beautiful. That is a beautiful thought. And I like to leave on beautiful thoughts. Stacey Steinmiller, radicallifecoach.com. Get yourself some coaching. If you've watched any of these live streams, Stacey knows her stuff, and she will not allow you to, she'll call you out on your BS, let's just say.
Yep.
Right?
That's true.
And we all need someone to call us out on our BS.
That is
Just
true.
ask my wife. Rockfox.com if you'd like to do a podcast or a legacy cast, or if you're a self-published author and you have an audiobook you'd like to record, we got you. We're in Bushnell's Basin. Just don't go on 490. Whatever you do, avoid that completely.
Construction. Yes. Take 96 the whole way.
We'll catch you next week on Positively Powerful.
Dancing